So I would like every one of us to know that Cora has three major aims for this book trek. And they are to educate, to enlighten us, and to empower us. So the community extension service iteration of the book trek is to ensure that people in Lagos, in the neighborhood and communities in Lagos, have access to the chosen text and the writer. So this is branded as an extension service on Cora'S campaign for literacy. So the Committee for Relevant Arts, which is Cora, is concerned about reviving the already declining reading culture in Nigeria. So the aim is to ensure that everyone has access to education, no matter how short the time of the book trek is. We know that we are going to gain three things. We are going to be educated, we are going to be enlightened, and we are going to be empowered. Welcome again, and I hope you enjoy today's book trek.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. Welcome everybody back to monthly book trek in Lagos, organized by Cora in partnership with corporate bodies. And today, if you check the banner here, you can see a beautiful lady or a beautiful girl. Should I put it out? Say beautiful girl. She's my lecturer, Dr. Lola Akande'S. And today we'll be looking at his works titled What It Takes. And for those ones here who is not familiar with that name, Lola Akande'S, I want us to take us down to the lane of Abaro here. Lola Akande'S is a Nigerian academic and fiction writer. She has published 3 novels and a collection of short stories, including the award-winning What It Takes and her latest novel, The Truth About Sanjay. Now, what about the book? What It Takes is a sad and vivid explosion of the typical Nigerian university doctorate program that vividly cannibalized the best of his own. It's the story of discouragement of an excellent academic pursuit, depicting the prevalence of favoritism, ethnicity, nepotism, and corruption, which also leads to some features of need culture and other negative tendencies currently ravaging the knowledge in the industry in Nigeria. If your hands are not busy, as your feet is not busy, can you just stand up as you welcome Dr. Lola into this seat? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm very honored to have the opportunity to be the very first person to be reading an excerpt. So I'll be reading from Lola Akande'S What It Takes. I'll be reading from pages 1 to 3, that is chapter 1. So September 1998. I stand in front of the large mirror and beam. A pretty, smooth-faced woman smiles back at me. I giggle in ecstasy, marveling at how youthful I look at 38. Wow, I'm still young and beautiful, I whisper tenderly, admiring the way my mouth curls when I smile. Holding my PhD admission letter in my right hand and ready to explore a new path in my life's journey, I'm unable to contain my excitement and sense of accomplishment. My body tingles with renewed excitement as I gaze endlessly at my reflection. I'm a beautiful woman, without doubt. Standing tall at 5 feet 10 inches without slouching, I turn my face slightly to get a side view, and then change my posture to search for wrinkles on my left temple. There are none. I breathe a sigh of relief. I shift anxiously to check my right temple. Still no wrinkles. I move closer to the mirror to scrutinize the area around my eyes. No lines at all. I sigh in relief. I'm delirious with joy. I'm absolutely stunning and thoroughly graceful. The mirror in front of which I stand is not the only one in my bedroom. In spite of my precarious financial situation, I have bought 2 additional large ones within the last 2 weeks to counter the psychological warfare my subconscious relentlessly wages against me. I take time to stand in front of them in turn, assessing and reassessing my face, figure, poise, and general physical appearance as objectively as I can, and taking delight at my positive findings each time. The mirrors are not even my only source of self-appraisal. I have taken another quick step aimed at putting my self-proclaimed youthful looks to the test. Yes, I leave my car at home daily now and use the public transport popularly known as Danfo to execute my itinerary. Lagos residents are familiar with the hilarious yet mischievous way bus conductors remind commuters of their age. If a woman looks old in their reckoning, they address her as Mama or Iya. I see women protest vehemently against being so addressed, but such protestations only serve to reinforce the bus conductor's convictions. Auntie or sister is used for women deemed to be youngish in looks. Such women have every reason to put on their dancing shoes and rock because there can be no greater affirmation of their youthfulness. I share in the palpable pain of my fellow women who are witnessed being mercilessly condemned to the age of Methuselah by these wickedly funny bus conductors, particularly because they always seem to be correct. There is another categorization for those who appear to be stylish, sophisticated, trendy, upbeat, and classy. Conductors address them as Mama, and to be so addressed is capable of catapulting any female to a state of delicious delirium in Lagos. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joy Obishe, and I'll continue from where she stopped. So, I deliberately make Danfo my choice of transportation within the city. And every day as I climb into the bus, I ensure that all my senses are hyper-alert, my hearing more acute, but my subconscious is always fraught with nerves. Sometimes when I'm lucky, I have the pleasure of being addressed as Mama. I savor such moment. Even more reassuring is the way some of them wink seductively at me, as if they knew I truly needed their weird encouragement. As mischievous and insensitive as they are, Lagos bus conductors are of immense value in helping to strengthen my psychological balance, and I'm thankful. My mind drifts to the time when I didn't need to worry about how young or old I look because I occupied my time with productive engagement. I was gainfully employed in the Federal Civil Service and led a relatively settled life. Then suddenly, about 6 months ago, a rationalization exercise hit the ministry where I worked, like a thunderbolt, and swept many of us away, leaving many families in indescribable anguish. That was sad. But what was sadder was that barely 2 months after the exercise, news of the sudden death of some of my former colleagues began to make the rounds. The news reminded me of the outburst of many of them as the sack letters were being distributed. They openly predicted their death, although no one paid them attention. They said they would not be able to carry on with life without employment. How right they were. And how did they know? While many engaged in hysterics, cursing and abusing the government for gross insensitivity and irresponsibility, some simply sat rooted to their seats, staring vacantly at some unknown object. But there were those who seemed to have anticipated it and were prepared. There were also those who received the news of the cessation of their hitherto source of livelihood with shock, but also with equanimity. Reminiscing about it probably puts me in the last category because I'm also one of those who believe the loss of a job ought not to be synonymous with the loss of one's hope. I remember the tragic story of one of my superiors, Mr. Simon, who used to pass through my street every Saturday during his bicycle riding morning exercise. When he stopped coming around about a month or so after our disengagement, I thought he was taking time off to plan his next course of action. But I got slightly worried when he still didn't show up 3 months after, so I inquired after him. It came as a real shock when some of my former colleagues wondered how I didn't know of his sudden death 2 months into our forced retirement. I was devastated because Simon was ebullient and full of life. How did his wife take his demise? How would his young children fare since their mother had no employment? No one had any answers. Mommy, what are you still doing in front of the mirror? Degemi's voice drags me back to the present. I whirl around to smile at her. Mommy is looking at herself. You are very fine, she says. Thanks, sweetheart, I mumble, feeling reassured as I take another quick look at my reflection to check for gray hairs. Not a single strand. I beam at my daughter. It's the beginning of a new era for me. I mutter under my breath and begin putting a few items together in readiness for my journey to the National University of Nigeria, Abuja, where I have just secured admission for a PhD program in literature. Thank you.
Page 30, last paragraph. Maybe you should try Dr. Kolade Duojaye. His office is on this floor, just 2 or 3 offices from the general office. You will find his name on the door. Good luck. He says the last 2 words in a rush, as if to dismiss me. I climb wearily to my feet, mumble a few words of appreciation and head out the door. I easily locate Dr. Duojaye's office and I meet him standing outside, talking to a group of students. He dismisses them as soon as I announce I wish to see him. He saunters into his office and I follow in tow. Dr. Duojaye is tall, his shoulders are broad and he has an athletic body. I notice he has a prominent teeth. I immediately become aware of his eyes regarding me. I swallow nervously and fidget. He tells me to sit, and I do as he says, murmuring my thanks. I no longer feel the confidence to introduce myself as a new student. Instead, I say, I'm a prospective PhD candidate in this department, sir. I'm here to request you to kindly be my supervisor. He regards me for some moments. I feel ill at ease and surreptitiously gaze at him from beneath my lashes. He is looking at me but saying nothing. I become even more uncomfortable. Perhaps he doesn't have space to accommodate me as a student. What's your name? He finally asks. Funtoye Wole, sir. Are you married? What has my marital status got to do with anything? I wonder silently, but to him I say, no, sir. Are you engaged or in a serious relationship? No, sir, but I have a 10-year-old daughter, sir. I see. He says and resumes gazing at me in a way that makes me feel ill at ease. His lips coil in a rare smile. Where are we going with this? I wonder, but say nothing. He rises from his seat and strolls majestically towards me. He leans over. I lower my gaze. His arm brushes against me accidentally. I imagine. Oh yes, it must have been accidentally because, well, Dr. Duwajaye hasn't said or done anything out of place. He has asked me about my marital status merely because he wants to know more about me. Yes, perhaps he wants to accept me as his PhD student. His other arm is now resting on the back of my chair, touching my back. This makes me uncomfortable, so I sit up, not leaning against the backrest. I attempt to swallow hard, but my mouth is dry. How does a beautiful, mature woman like you cope without a man? He asks. His lips inches for my ear. I don't know the appropriate response to give, so I say nothing. Thank you.
Please, a round of applause for the readers, please. It is not easy. Before I hand over the mic to the author, what it takes. The first time I got that particular title, I thought there's a reference or it's kind of a similarity between the biblical addition, where I have Philippians 4:13 and it says, I can do all things through you who strengthens me. So is that what it takes? That is my own analogy. But however, I remember that while we were reading the background of the book, there's this social context of Nigerian University and this issue of nepotism, favoritism, we are Nigerian University students and we know what's going on in Nigeria. So before I start or before we move on directly to the book, what it takes, the title. Please start from there.
What it takes, what does it mean? So it so happens that I went to school. I had the privilege of attending 3 universities in Nigeria. And so, by the time I got the PhD, I sat down and I invited myself to a meeting. And I asked myself, what is really the purpose of this PhD that you've got? What is it? What is so important about it? Is it to just get a job, be a teacher, earn a living, collect salary? And I realized that what I saw, the things I experienced, not necessarily personally, but throughout, with students, lecturers, what goes on in the Nigerian university system should go into a book. What does it take to have a PhD in Nigeria? What does it take to be a PhD candidate in a Nigerian university? Specifically, what does it take for a woman to enroll for a PhD program in a Nigerian university? And that's why the name of this university is National University of Nigeria, Abuja, symbolizing the entire country. Abuja is the capital. National belongs to everybody in Nigeria. The university. So this is a university narrative. Taking a look at the university and taking a look specifically at degree awarding processes in Nigerian university. How do we award degree? What the students go through? What's the relationship between students and lecturers? So I realized that people get PhD and then they celebrate. And sometimes some of them are unable to celebrate because they have gone through so much that by the time they finish, they have become disillusioned. They have suffered so much that the degree is no longer worth celebrating. There is so much sorrow, so much pain, so much anguish. And so I decided to look at what it takes to earn a PhD in Nigeria. So if you want to apply for a PhD, you need to read what it takes. And particularly if you are a woman, you need to read what it takes to know what to expect. So I also think that, writing the story, telling the story would conscientize the academia. So that today, as I stand before you as a lecturer, I use the book to guide my interaction with my students. I cannot be perfect, nobody is. But I try, to understand from what we have heard so far, from what has been read, you can see that Funto is a woman with a lot of problems. She has lost her job. She's 38. There's no man in her life. She has no husband. She has a child. So this is a woman with a lot of issues, with a lot of problems. And that is what we find in the university environment, where we have students from diverse backgrounds. Everybody has one problem or another. So I thought this is a situation where at the academia, lecturers will know that the students we are dealing with have a lot of problems. And therefore, we need to understand and approach them from, our understanding, our empathy, that some of them may actually be having problems. And therefore, we need to treat them with a lot of care. And people openly ask me, so that's your PhD story. So you are a lecturer now. So you have to write the one that will show us, at least now you are a lecturer. Say you are condemning lecturers because as a student, now you are a lecturer. You need to write another book and tell us how you are relating with your own students. Well, let me say that what it takes is not my story. What it takes is fiction. But you see, one of the very first lessons I learned as a literature student is to understand that it is reality that feeds imagination. So fiction is a research into life as it is lived. Fiction is a research into life as it is lived. I've had to look at what people go through and come to say that this is going to represent what it takes to get a PhD in a typical Nigerian university. It takes a lot. It takes understanding the terrain. It takes knowing that the university, contrary to our general opinion that it is a solution center, where once you come to the university, you have all your problems solved, that there are so many problems in the university. The lecturers themselves are going through a lot of problems. They are overworked, and when I have a chance to read some parts of the novel, we will we become more educated about what the lecturers are also going through and probably why they behave the way they behave. But the focus here is that there is so much power in the hands of university lecturers. There's so much power in the system. And sometimes this power is misused. This power is not managed properly. And that this novel sets out to conscientize the academia, to let them know that no matter how much power the lecturer has, a student of any category, is for you to look at and to take care of. And some of them are going through a lot. Even though it's not really, the best of person you want to see. She has so many problems. And whatever her fault may be, she should not be taken advantage of. No lecturer should take advantage of any student, no matter what, under no circumstance, because you are there to protect the student. And we must try, even though we are human beings too, and we are not perfect, but we must understand our position. We must not misuse or fail to use that power that we have.
All right, thank you, ma'am, for the background of the story. Over the years, we have been told that literature is either fiction and not fiction. And most of the time, students believe that because it's fiction, it's not practicalized, it's not reality. Even because I've submitted that project topic, I would have loved to explore that particular part to let us understand that fiction is actually more striking than non-fiction when it comes to the importance of literacy. Yes, fiction, is imaginary work of art. But I want us to take us to the fact that the imagination of the writer actually comes from the reality. If you don't believe that, you can actually, if you're a writer, please just explore that aspect. That the imagination of the writer, either he's writing about Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, actually comes from what the writer has experienced in reality and is trying to put into the book. So I want you to take us to the aspect of the book that's taking us to the book itself.
Basically, what it takes, the novel, is to showcase, to show what it takes to earn a PhD. But it's also about what it takes to attend a university in Nigeria, what it takes to be a university student. Because in the book, in the novel, we also have experiences of undergraduate students. There's a particular student who, somebody has read a part where the heroine goes to meet the lecturer, Dr. Drojaye, to be her prospective PhD student. It turns out that there's another student, an undergraduate student, who comes to see Dr. Drojaye at about the same time. And she's able to observe when she comes out, because Dr. Drojaye wants to be, her boyfriend and all of that. And because she is not comfortable with that, the undergraduate student is telling her, educating her that this is what happens here. You just have to try to understand and flow, So the message of the book, basically, as I said before, first, to educate people, to educate Nigerians who are in secondary schools and getting ready to enter the university, to understand what it takes to be in a university environment, to prepare, to be careful, to learn, so as not to become victims of sexual harassment, so as not to become victims of financial exploitation. We have a lecturer here, we have a professor in this novel who demands money, and she's a woman, she's a female professor. So it is not as if only male lecturers, are problematic. The female lecturers are also problematic in their own way. Of course, we also have lecturers in the novel who encourage students, who travel and even help students to buy books. So there are different types of people Now, the message basically is to prepare people, young adults who are getting ready to enter the university, to know, to understand the university theory. Funso, at 38, is almost ignorant about what it takes to get a PhD. She has earned her first degree, she has earned her master's. But you see, the PhD, they say, is a political program where there are only 3 things you have to do. You have to prostrate, and prostrate again. It's not about, they say, it's not about your intellect, it's not about how hardworking you are. Your supervisor is the university. And so he determines your progress. If he says you are not ready, you are not ready. And I remember, the things I saw, the frustration I saw for a woman like Funso who has no job, who embarks on this program, believing that, oh, it's a 3-year program, after 3 years, she has a daughter to feed, she has a daughter to send to school, and she's hoping that once she finishes, she will become a breadwinner. And this program, I think in this novel, I think the program takes her about 10 to 12 years before she's able to complete her PhD. So, the message is to prepare young people who are aspiring to become university students, so that you know how to navigate the terrain. When a lecturer begins to behave in a certain way, you know when to run before he locks the door. If you are a female student, when you enter a lecturer's office and he immediately locks the door, you know you should start shouting, or you start pressing your phone, or you start making recordings. If you enter a lecturer's office and she demands for money, you know it is unethical. You know you should not give your lecturer money, despite the fact that the salaries of lecturers are very poor. What we are saying, what this book is saying, what this novel is saying, is that fiction is research into lived experience. Everything here is in this novel because it can happen, and in some cases, all of these things actually happen. As I've said, I'm not Funso, please. I'm not Funso. I don't even like her. Frankly. But I'm saying that she does not deserve to suffer the way she does. Sometimes when I read part of the novel, there was a time I was reading the place where she's begging her supervisor, and she's holding the supervisor's trousers, and I started weeping. What the emotional, the trauma a student could go through, because this degree is everything to him or her. It could be the BA, it could be the MA, it could be the PhD. How they put all their life into it, how they put all their energy into it. Not to trifle with their life and their dreams. Because you see, so many minds are being ruined in the process. And I believe there are times when even the lecturers themselves are not aware of the magnitude of the damage. Some lives are permanently damaged. Some minds are permanently damaged. And so the message is simple. First, to prepare people who want to go into the university, to know what to expect, to understand the rules and the regulations. So when you enter the university and understand the limits of the powers of the lecturer. To conscientize also. Part of it is to conscientize the academia, the lecturers, to use what it takes as a mirror. I try to use it. I hold it, for checks and balances. So when I'm in a very bad mood, and I scream and I misbehave to students, so that I know how to make up, because I'm also human. Know how to navigate, know the rules and regulations, know the limits, know that your lecturers are human beings. They are not perfect, and so don't expect perfection. And when you begin to see things you are not supposed to see, you should take action before it gets too late. And for lecturers to also be careful. There are times when lecturers, we are teachers and they say our reward is in heaven. Sometimes we get our reward on earth. You know, last week or so, I went to Yemi and I was very hungry in the afternoon like this. And I went to Yemi to buy yogurt. And I picked just two bottles of yogurt. And as I approached the cashier, so I placed the yogurt and I brought out my card. And as I tried to hand it over to the cashier, a student behind me, I didn't know there was a student there who had seen me. I don't know people. I'm very, very bad at knowing people. And of course, we have so many students. So if my student had seen me, and he was waiting for when I was going to try to pay, and I did not know. And as soon as I brought out my card, I told the cashier, don't take the card. So my card is with you. Add what she has bought to my own. And that's a student, a year 4 student. You know, so there are times when, yes, you take from your students. So I'm not saying that, you know, there's perfection anywhere. So I was so overwhelmed with humility. I felt very proud. I have entered the keke before. I was going from campus to Yaba, and I didn't know that the student, the lady I sat with was my student. And it was when we got to Yaba and I was about to pay the keke man. And the student said, don't take her money. Take. And she turned to me and said, I'm your student, ma. That's somebody paying my keke fare. That's a student. I had stood at the gate before. I got to gate and I didn't know how I was going to get to the faculty. So I stood. There were so many people. The queue was so long. And as I stood, I was contemplating, should I begin to trek? Should I go and join the long queue for the campus shuttle? A car just stopped, and it was my own student who had ordered, you know, a ride. And he opened the door and said, Ma, come in. I know you are going to the faculty. Come in, ma. So he gave me a ride to Uber. So I'm not saying, therefore, that, you know, it's as an exclusive, that, you know, but that it is not a right. You do not ask your student to pay your keke fare or to pay your transport fare, or you do not go to a supermarket and meet your student and insist that he or she has to purchase or must pay for what you have bought. So one way or another, if God wants to bless you, he will do so. So the message is to know the limits. So it's like when a child gives something to the parent, you know, you are happy that your child has given you something. But in the academic environment, just as you do not, because you have paid the school fees of your children, you do not insist that your children must begin to feed you without understanding their financial strength. You know, you shouldn't make demand. So let's go and see Funto as she gets so frustrated. And when she mentions her problem to somebody, the person decides that, you know what, I have a solution. Like I said, in this topic, a PhD program that's supposed to take 3 years, it takes 12 years. So you can imagine, you know, you can imagine for somebody who starts the program at 38. So you can imagine her frustration. In fact, the child she intends to use the PhD job, you know, lecturer job to train, finishes her university education and she hasn't gotten the PhD. That's how terrible her situation is. So at a point, she becomes so frustrated and she tells somebody that my supervisor is holding me back. Because you give your work to a supervisor and your supervisor does not read it. He doesn't read it or she doesn't read it. And the supervisor is in the university. So unless the supervisor reads and approves, you cannot make progress. So the person now says, you know what, I have a solution. I will take this somewhere. So here, they are with Babalawo. So this man, this friend, Femi, has brought Funto to Babalawo. And so Babalawo says, sit down, my daughter, don't cry. I know your problem already. He said, I am flabbergasted. He knows my problem? How? I haven't said anything. Is he really as powerful as Femi says? I will help you overcome that man. That's your God that is troubling you and debarring your progress. Good heavens. This is certainly beyond the guess. He seems to know my problem truly. I cast a confused glance at Femi as my heart pounds away furiously. Yes, let me see how to handle him. Baba murmured, and I watch him, fear-stricken, as he searches for, I have no idea. Finally, he finds it. It's a little stick, about the size of a standard ruler. He stretches his hand toward me, using his eyes to tell me to take it from him. I am trembling all over. I try to stretch my hand. I am shaking violently. I am thoroughly drenched in my own sweat now. What am I doing here? I ask myself for the umpteenth time. Take the stick, my daughter. Baba says tenderly. The tenderness in his voice is soothing. I take the stick, but I don't know what to do with it. He calls out a name, and a young boy appears in the doorway. Get me the white basin, half filled with water. Baba says, and the boy disappears. Seconds later, he reappears. He sets the basin before Baba and leaves. My daughter, the power to deal with your God is in that stick. And the stick is in your hand. What it means is that you will hold the power to deal with him as you wish. And not to summon his spirit. Here, shut, and you are at liberty to do what you please with him. What does it mean? I don't understand. But I'm not in a position to voice my confusion. I'm peering at him and at the stick in my hand. Intermittently, hoping the mystery will unfold soon. Baba starts to chant incantations, and Femi grins. How come he's enjoying this weird performance? Baba finishes chanting and tells me to look into the basin. Femi and I take a cue simultaneously. What? Am I in a trance or something? Right here in front of me, in the water, inside the basin, Professor Charles Ephraim's image looks large. Ha! My supervisor in Lagos, all the way from Abuja. How did this happen? I fear for my sanity now. I start to shake violently. Femi is holding me by the arm, whispering to me to be calm. I look furtively at Baba. A soft smile plays at the corners of his mouth. Listen carefully, my daughter. Your dad's life is in your hands. Now, you can choose to eliminate him through any of his body parts. If you want him to go blind instantly, for example, simply use the stick in your hand to choke his eyes, one after the other, and he goes totally and incurably blind. If your wish for him is instant death, use the stick to choke his chest. And if you want him paralyzed, target his waist. He will become paralyzed from the waist down. Even if you want to break his skull, the same stick in your hand is what you will direct at his forehead. I peer at the water. Professor Ephraim seems to be staring back at me. I hold his gaze for some time, for some moments. He looks calm, innocent, without the air of a professor. Good heavens. I shift my gaze to Baba. He's looking at me intently, urging me to make up my mind how I want to end my supervisor's life. I find my voice. No, Baba. I didn't come here to kill my supervisor. I want him to live, thrive, be happy and successful in all his life's endeavors. I have only one wish. I want him to soften his mind towards me and take pity on me. I don't even want to insist that he continues to be my supervisor. I want him to be kind enough to put his decision into writing so that God may look down on me with compassion and direct me to another lecturer who will agree to supervise me. I want my supervisor to set me free, Baba. I notice Baba frown as soon as I start to speak. His frown deepens as my speech progresses. If it were not for Femi, I would have taught you the most bitter lesson of your miserable life, such that you would never again dare to waste an old man's time. He says malevolently, letting out a prolonged ease. I rise swiftly to my feet and take flight. I keep running without looking back until I reach the bus stop. I don't ever wish to set my eyes on both of them again. What happens to her?
Yes, what happens at the end of the story?
At the end of the story, our day finishes university. You know, her mother is not even able to because the mother doesn't get her pay on time. But the mother has a friend who helps to pay, sometimes to help in paying the school fees and all of that. And so eventually, DME finishes, she completes her university. In fact, at the end of the story, DME is serving at the presidency in Abuja. And DME gets a marriage proposal at the last chapter. Somebody comes to marry her.
Like what we are talking about, the PhD, everybody, that's the dream of every MA student. Now we have seen someone that has gone through the system for 12 years, and yet the person was able to come out with a PhD. That means it's doable. So I just want to say, I don't know the plan, if this thing can, just like the way that change out for it available to all the secondary school students that were going to university, how is it going to that the plan you're having to create more awareness for people to get a hold of this material? Thank you.
If I didn't decide to do it myself, I wouldn't be here today speaking to you. If I had allowed that to demoralize me and I left it in my computer. So from then on, you know, I became more courageous. But the problem is, I cannot do the job of a marketer. I don't even have the skill. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the finance. And I don't have the contact to make them recommend the book. If you know what it takes to get your book, it's not, you know, you don't just sit down and, you know, and then it's in down. Do you understand? It takes high networking. So if you are a poor lecturer who knows no big person, who has no contact in Abuja, who does not know anybody, eventually they will get to know, but it will take time. It will take time. If you know nobody, eventually, I did not beg Cora to come and engage with you. I did not know how and when they made their decision. So that gives hope. When I wrote the truth about Sadia and NDLA came, it gave me great hope because I did not bribe the NDLA. I don't know anybody. So it gives hope. But the thing is that it takes time. It takes time. Sometimes the writer is not lucky. The writer dies before the work becomes recognized. There are so many writers who wrote very formidable, remarkable books that transformed the world, but they were not celebrated in their lifetime because they were not recognized. So it takes time. So gradually the book will find its way because it has a life of its own. So I didn't go to Cora'S. I do not know when they made that. I do not know how they came across the book. I'm not part of decision making. I do not know how it happened. So if Cora'S could invite to engage the book, it means anybody can happen. It means somebody who is in Cora'S today may be in Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Education tomorrow, who will say, no, that's a fantastic book. And, needs to be in the reading list of secondary school or university or whatever. So, but the thing is, write it, make your contribution, and then let the world, the universe take over.